Lena, lead designer at Annie's, and I'm giving you a warm welcome to this quick stitches and tips episode of Annie's Creative Studio. Today we will have lots of fun crocheting hair scrunchies. Yes, scrunchies are here again, and they are trendier than ever. I just love making scrunchies. They're so easy to make, and you can even be a beginner. You can use up your scraps, and not to mention that they make great gifts. If you're not a member of Annie's Creative Studio yet, you can sign up to start watching and to download patterns for free today. For the scrunchie I will demo today, there's actually not a pattern, and that's just how easy it is. So just join me and I will show you everything you need to know on how to make a basic crochet scrunchie. So when you crochet your scrunchie, it will turn out different sizes depending on a few different things. So first of all, it will come out wider depending on the number of stitches that you will be working. But also the size will differ depending on the size of the yarn you're using. So for this smaller one, I used a really thin yarn called a fingering weight yarn, and I was working 12 stitches around. And for this bigger one, I was using a worsted weight, a thicker yarn, and I was working 16 stitches around. And for the thinner yarn, I was using a smaller hook. So this one is a size G, 4 millimeter, that I used for my smaller scrunchie. And for the bigger one, I used a J hook, which is a 6 millimeter hook that I used for my worsted weight yarn for the larger scrunchie. To make a scrunchie, you will need the following things. You would need a skein of yarn, a ball of yarn. It will not take much. You need a crochet hook that is of an equivalent size to the yarn you're using. Then you will need an elastic that you can cut into an 8-inch long piece. You will need a tapestry needle or darning needle, and you will need scissors. So for the simple scrunchie we are going to work together today, I picked the thinner yarn and the G hook. And first of all, you're going to start by putting a slip knot on your hook. So make a loop on the yarn, pull the working end of the yarn through that loop, and then pulling on the tail, you will tighten. So now you have this slip knot that you can adjust. So just put it on your hook and tighten. For the smaller scrunchie, I'm working 12 stitches around, and for the bigger one, I worked 16. But now we're working the smaller one, so we'll start by chaining 12. So yarn over your hook and pull it through the loop on your hook, and repeat that a total of 12 times. So 2, 3, 4, 5. So now I have this little chain band here. That is my start. And as you can see, I made sure not to work those chain stitches too tight because I need to be able to work into them now when we start working in the round. So to work in the round, I will just form a little circle like this and join here in the very first chain. So I will put my hook through there and then take the working end of the yarn, do a yarn over, pull it through the chain, and now when I have 2 loops here on my hook, I will yarn over and pull through both those 2 loops. So that is my first stitch, and now I will be working in continuous rounds, around and around in double crochet stitches. So let's get started. I wrap the yarn around my hook, go into the next stitch, yarn over and pull it through. And now when I have 3 loops here on my hook, I yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the last 2. So that's a double crochet stitch. and that's the stitch we will be working around and around and around. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over and bring up the loop, yarn over again, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over and go through the second 2 loops. One more here, yarn over into the stitch, bring up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, go through the second 2, yarn over, bring up a loop in the next stitch, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over and go through the second 2. So as you can see here now, we are just starting to create fabric by working around into the ring. So we will just keep working like this around in each stitch and just let your fabric twist as you keep working in the round. So let's see here now, I'm going to take the tail end and bring it out here at the bottom so that I can see now the shape. Trying not to be too fiddly, but as you can see here now, it will create this tube. So I will keep working, and you can also just keep working your 12 stitches all around the circle. And once we have worked into all 12 of our chain stitches, then we will be all the way around to that first stitch that we joined with. So once we get a little bit more fabric, it's going to be easier to hold on to. And for now, you just have to take it slowly and make sure that you go into each stitch. So here you can see I'm reaching the end here now of the circle. I have one more chain stitch here at the end to work a double crochet into, and then I come to this first one that we joined with. So now when I come to that stitch, now we yarn over and then go through both those 2 top loops of that stitch, yarn over and bring through, and then yarn over and go through the first 2, yarn over through the second 2. So now you can really start seeing here now how working around the ring is going to create this little tube shape here. And what I will do now is that I will just keep working around and around using the same stitches here until this tube measures a total of 22 inches. That's the measure that I have found works great for the scrunchie that I'm making. It gives a good amount of scrunch, but of course if you want to work it longer, then you're going to get more scrunch, or if you make it less long, then of course it's just going to not scrunch together as much. But like I said, I figured that 22 inches is a good measure, so that's how far I will keep working on my tube. So keep working around and around and around, and I'll meet you again when we have reached the 22 inches. So I've been working around and around with my double crochet stitches, and now I have this tube here, and so I will bring in a tape measure and just measure the whole tube to make sure that you now, let's see here, have reached the full length. And I'm actually measuring all the way out here outside the picture. I can tell that my tube is now 22 inches long. So that's a perfect length to finish it off. And to finish it off, I will simply, instead of next up working a double crochet, I will just end here with a single crochet. So go into the next stitch and bring up a loop, and then yarn over and go through those 2 loops and tighten. And then you can bring in your scissors and leave, I would say, about a 8 to 10 inch long tail for seaming, and then just snip it off, and you can just pull out that tail and tighten it. So that finishes off. Our tube is now ready. And next up, we will need an elastic. So bring in your elastic and measure, I would say, approximately 8 inches long. So measure and then bring in your scissors here again and make sure it's 8 inches long. So there we go. And now we need to pull that short elastic through this long tube. So the way I did that was to simply just start scrunching it up. I just put my fingers through the fabric and scrunch up the whole fabric here onto my fingers. And so now you can see I have my fingers through here. So then take that elastic and just pull it through the center of your tube. Make sure it stays to hold on to these little ends. So at this point, depending on what kind of elastic you have, you can tie them together, or you can even sew a couple of stitches through the band, or you can possibly use a little bit of a fabric glue. But for my elastic, which is pretty like rough in the fabric, so I know a knot will really sit tightly, so I just tie a really tight knot, and then I really stretch it so I make sure that that knot isn't going anywhere. So now, once I have that in there, I'm just gonna find my ends here and the fabric. So I'm gonna spread out the ends so I just have the beginning and the end here. And then what I can do is just to simply tie these ends together like this. And then to finish it off nicely, I'm putting it on the needle. And now I will simply seam the beginning to the ending round. So lay these layers next to each other and then just whip stitch, stitch by stitch together all the way around to close it up. So, and since this fabric will be scrunching, it's not really that important how your seam comes along, but just make sure to go through the stitches 2 and 2 and all the way around so that the elastic doesn't have a chance to sneak out anywhere. So we'll just seam like this all the way around. So once you have seamed your last stitches together and you're all the way around, you can simply tie that tail to your tail. Make a tight knot, just like that. And then all you need to do is just run the tail through with the needle here through a couple of stitches, like that. And then the second one, the same way. Just put it back on the needle, find a couple of stitches to run it through, just like that. And then stretch out the fabric a little bit. And then I will just take my scissors and snip those 2 tails off. And with that, ta-da, we have finished our first scrunchie. Well, that wasn't too hard, was it? Now you know how to crochet a simple scrunchie, and from here on you can start experimenting with different yarns and colors. You can also add a different texture by switching from double crochet to single crochet, or maybe make a simple lace texture, switch colors, and so many other fun versions. If you get on the scrunchie wagon with me, Please share a photo once you are finished so that we all can inspire each other. You can upload your photo to this website in the gallery. Just click on the Upload tab below. And you can also share your pictures on Annie's Creative Studio Facebook or Instagram pages. If you do, just don't forget to hashtag Annie's Creative Studio. Thank you for joining me today. I'm Lena Skvagerson, and I hope you will join me soon in another Quick Stitches and Tips episode.